This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
They call me crazy cause I'm facing all my giants. They try to scare me into thinking I can fight it. They tell me I should never even think of trying. But that's just me, I'm gonna live out in defiance.
Welcome, Alphas. Thanks for joining us. We have someone special in store for you on the show today. We'll be joined by Navy veteran John Joseph McGowan, who is a musician, author, and Ironman triathlete from New York City, where they make salsa. Most famous for his work as the lead singer of the Cro-Mags in the 1980s, 90s, and 2000s. He's currently the vocalist of Blood Clot. And the Cro-Mags. John Joseph is also known for his vegan lifestyle, and he's a big dude too. So that's, is pretty impressive, as well as numerous publications and interviews. He even has his own YouTube cooking channel in which he presents delicious vegan meals next to his entertaining personality. But before John Joseph joins us, Stacy's got a Revolutionary War historical fact for us, don't you, Stacy?
I do. Tomorrow marks the anniversary of the Battle of Stony Point, which was a significant victory for the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War. On July 16th, 1779, General Mad Anthony Wayne successfully led a daring midnight assault to capture Fort Stony Point, New York, from the British. This event, known as Wayne's forces, comprised of light infantry, utilized bayonets in a close quarters combat surprise attack, overcoming the British garrison and securing the strategic fort. General Washington gave Wayne his instructions, along with permission to modify the plan if necessary. This was an unusual act for Washington and indicates the high opinion that he had for Wayne's abilities. The assault would be difficult. It would be carried out in the dead of night, called for the men to scale the steep, rocky sides of Stony Point, and required surprise. To accomplish this last element, Washington ordered the men to carry only unloaded muskets and to attack only using bayonets to maintain silence, a tactic often employed by the British Army and had been used to devastating effect against Wayne 2 years prior at Paoli. Okay, so it's pretty badass because after Wayne and his special forces took over the fort, Wayne sent a brief dispatch telling Washington, that's General and former President, our very first, the fort and the garrison with Colonel Johnson are ours. Our officers and men behaved like men who are determined to be free. So it's pretty spectacular. Also, most importantly, super producer Holly happens to hail from Fort Wayne, a town in northeast Indiana, named for the Revolutionary War general who founded the fort there in 1794. Fun fact. General Wayne hated the Mad Anthony moniker.
I always wonder, every time I hear a nickname, I'm like, did they give it to themselves? Obviously, this one he didn't, because Mad Anthony is like, I mean, that doesn't like flow, you get, when it doesn't flow easily and you get a moniker like Mad, dude was mad. Like, there wasn't a better word like Angry Anthony that would have like alliterated a little bit better.
Or he could have had a really good PR team and he knew it. Might not
That's true.
What I need to do is secret these letters to General Washington, referring to me as Mad, and hopefully it will catch. Yeah. So all you alphas out there who are wonderful supporters of the American Legion or members of American Legion Auxiliary, they are actively looking for support for the America 250 events, celebrating our 250th birthday for our nation. So you can help with national observances, learn more about the American Legion events and how you can support those activities by visiting legion.org/USA250. Guys, I'm really, really disappointed that I won't be able to stick around for John Joseph's interview because I have a very, very important meeting. It's Secret Squirrel. I can't tell you about it.
What?
I know, but I will be back for the scuttlebutt. So you guys hold down the fort for me.
I didn't know this was happening.
It's happening. I'm sorry.
Position 3.
All right. Well,
for all of you who are listening only, Joe is using his crazy, stupid, scary zoom in effect on his video, which is disturbing. You were saying, Adam?
No, I was just saying, based off that sad and somber news, that you won't be here for the interview. I will just advise our alphas to please stick around. Me and Joe are going to do our absolute best. We'll be back with our guests right after the break.
The American Legion is raising awareness about PTSD and veteran suicide by offering hope, camaraderie, and support.
Be the one to help end veteran suicide.
Be the one to save one veteran.
Be the one to ask a veteran in your life how they're doing.
Be the one to reach out when a veteran is struggling.
Go to BeTheOne.org and help the American Legion end veteran suicide.
Will you be the one?
Today, we're joined by John Joseph. His veganism has been influenced by Ital food in Jamaica while he was in the Navy, and by the vegan straight edge, no animal products, alcohol, or drugs movement popular in the hardcore punk scene. If you've ever heard him speak, you'll know he doesn't mince his words and has shown that a plant-based diet is plenty to fuel multiple Ironman completions. John Joseph, welcome to Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
Hey man, thanks for having me. It's truly an honor. Thanks for everything you guys do and have done and will do in the future.
Appreciate you, brother. So I can tell from your accent that you're from Georgia, just like me, right? No.
Oh yeah, man, let me tell you about Rocky Mountain oysters. They get Indian ones now.
So you're former Cro-Mags frontman, pioneer of punk rock, and it's funny because punk rock was one of those things that when I was, I grew up, my introduction to punk rocks was like Dropkick Murphys and like Sum 41.
Al Barr is like my best friend.
That's incredible.
I talk to him every day. Big supporter of the veterans, by the way, as are
yes,
Rancid and a lot of the bands. Support what you guys do, man. I don't take it for granted ever. So
I think it's cool though, because one of the things that I think draws people in to punk music is how it feels, not so much and it's a message and it's a feel and it's a vibe and there's an energy there. I'd love to hear a little bit about your early life in music and what guided you to where you're at now.
I started out, we had a real tough upbringing. My father was a professional boxer and turned to alcohol and violence. He wanted to be a gangster, hanging out with the Westies, and it took it out on my mom, and we got removed from the home and placed into foster care. Every abuse you could possibly imagine happened to us in that place for 5 years. And from there, I went on to the streets in 1976. But I always loved music because even when we were on the run from my father, who was a madman, everybody was terrified of him. He boxed under Customato that trained, world champions, Floyd Patterson, Mike Tyson. He would just find us, break in, beat down my mom, take any food, money, whatever he had for his new girlfriend. And then music was always the outlet, like no matter what we were going through. Like I'm writing a film based on my memoir now, which is Evolution of a Cro-Magnon.
Oh, and, nice.
I talk about how, the opening scene is like we're living in the projects in Queens, and it's like there's drug dealing in the hallway, and this is in the late 60s. And we were in the apartment, me and my mom, dancing to Motown, and like music was always the relief, even in this foster home. Yeah. They made us sleep in the garage, and I just had this little AM transistor radio, and that was my escape out of all the pain and suffering that they were doing. And then I kind of got into I saw the original Led Zeppelin growing up in New York. Like they put us in Rockaway Beach, St. John's Home for Boys, and I got to see like the Ramones hanging out there, and like I started going to punk shows in '77. But I also loved rock and roll, and I loved soul music, R&B. But I saw the original Led Zeppelin, The Who, Black Sabbath, like you name it. I got to see all those concerts. My first concert, 14 years old, I went to Kenny's Castaways in the West Village and saw Elvin Bishop, whose big hit was, You know, he had that big hit in 75. I must have been through about 1,000,000 girls. I love them when I leave them alone. But that was my first concert. And I was 14, and they used to let kids into the venues to see bands as long, like CBGBs too. And Hilly would be like, if I catch you with a drink or doing drugs, you're out of here. You're 86th for life. So it was New York was a real cultural epicenter of music. And I got into the punk rock stuff just because, you know, the violence that was done to me as a child, and then the violence that I was seeing on the streets of New York. I witnessed my first murder at 14. Somebody got stabbed to death right in front of me in in a bar by Madison Square Garden. So like I saw people get murdered, shot, like just insanity, and punk rock just became a channel for me to work through everything. It was, you know, like the military has camaraderie, right? But we were like the rejects of society that like, it was a lot of runaways on the streets and kids that been through stuff like me, abused, foster homes, violent drug and alcohol addicted family life. Like, so we just came together behind this music, and it was just like, you know, and then later on I got to work for a band called the Bad Brains, and they were the ones who hit, like you said, my ship pulled into Jamaica, and I got to meet these Rastafarians. You know, I'm not gonna lie, man. I was doing drugs. You know, I came out of lockup, and I never dealt with the problems that happened to me. So it was these, you know, time. That's why I got the time bomb. The psychiatrist in lockup, and then in the Navy, they said I was a time bomb waiting to go off. And drugs and alcohol fueled that. And so when I went to Jamaica, everything was a party. You know, in 1980, they didn't even do drug testing in the military. Everybody was, especially.
So were you already, when you went to Jamaica, were you already in the military at that point?
I graduated like with honors in my boot camp class. Me and my brother, I was the physical training petty officer. You know,
so how did you go from the punk rock scene and being able to use that as an outlet to be able to kind of heal and escape? And then sounds like there was a little bit of a run-in with the law, but the military also came in there. How did all that kind of and did the punk rock scene kind of push you into that run-in with the law? Or
was I got locked up, and then when I got out, I went through the Scared Straight program in lockup, where they took us to Rollway State Prison, and then Fishkill Maximum Security Prison, trying to scare the crap out of us. And it might have worked for a week, but when I got out of lockup, I went right back to the same thing. I was selling drugs, and I got caught with drugs in New York. And I had just close to 2 years, and they said my mom was dating a Navy recruiter at the time. And he said, hey, man, I could get all this buried, you know, just go, you and your brother go in on the buddy program. And that's how that manifested. And
what year was that?
That was 1980.
Okay.
That was 1980. And I got signed in at 17. So,
cool.
You know, I work with a lot of people now who messed up their careers in the military because that's what happened to me. I went in gun ho, and then my company commander in boot camp, he was a CB in Nam. He showed me the Be Someone Special video. I'm like, that's what I wanted to do, and I started training and all that. I want, you know, you're gonna be, you know, he had the cigar. He's like, you're gonna be a badass Navy fireman. I was all about it, but I got hurt, you know, in the preconditioning aspect of that before you go off the buds, and then they just sent me down to the fleet, no rate, no nothing. They're like, you know, strike for a rate. And I was in a pre-com unit in Norfolk, Virginia, and for the USS Arkansas, and I was a mess, man. I was all of that stuff. It just was every dream I had just kept getting snatched away from me.
Yeah.
And I was betrayed by a lot of people too, including my mother even admits it. I mean, my mother was raped. That's how she conceived me. And then she always chose her boyfriends over us. And I felt a betrayal from that. And I just self-medicated, and there was other dudes in the military that were doing that too back then, because, people that went into the Navy were a mess. A lot of people back then. It was just like they were in circumstances like what I was. Okay, because the enlistment numbers were so low at the time, they were taking a lot of people that really had no business going into the service. And I was one of those, I feel. And, I tried to do the right thing and made E2, was going for E3, but then things started happening. I was getting in fights, and this one dude on my ship kept messing with me, man. And I don't like bullies. I got bullied as a kid, so I locked him in the boatswain locker and beat the crap out of him, and that didn't sit well with the
Yeah, they don't like that.
Well, you got to think too. You got to think. You just come out of World War II, Korea, Vietnam. Okay, so three world wars. And then it's rolling around to the 1980s, and nobody wants to join the military. At that time, everybody's kind of becoming disenfranchised, and then the programs that are available and the tools and support mechanisms that they had in the military in those days compared to not there at all. No, that was the get in line and get tough, get straight. We get all the guys off the streets.
It's not macho to show your feelings and all. I mean, listen, my nephew did tours in the Marines over in Iraq and everything. He had PTSD. We didn't even know he signed his DD-214. And we got a call from the sheriff down in Florida, and he had a warrant because he never returned the rental car. He was living in it. And so, that's how we found, and he was, I've just seen it time and time again. Not everybody's able to deal with seeing what they see in war. I mean, I have a lot of friends. My friend AJ James was in active valor. I know a lot of these guys, they're just built differently, but some people, when they go and see the horrors of war and their buddies get blown up and killed, and it's hard for them to deal with. I've made it my thing. Even anything I do, when a vet reaches out to me, I'm like, yo, there's no charge. I coach vets in mindset and discipline and everything for free. My new book just came out, which I wrote during my brother Frank's 20-year start. I did an intervention on him the day before 9/11 and was sending him to rehab. I put him in the VA on 23rd Street multiple times, and it's just, I was writing that book and really being honest with what I went through. I'm not proud of the things that I did. I left the military. I ended up getting a general discharge and turned myself in, but I'm not proud of that. But
Well, talk about that. Talk about that a little bit, John, because you wrote this book, around 2000. You obviously have a heart, and you're doing work, for the veterans. But there was a big gap there between getting out and the circumstances which you got out in, and then the trajectory of where you kind of found yourself. And it seems like you also have a very elevated perspective on a lot of the things that you went through. So how did you achieve that?
Well, I did a lot of soul searching. I became a monk actually for 2 years. I was a Hare Krishna monk, shaved head, the whole nine. But what happened to me in Norfolk was I got set up by civilians. So I made a drug deal I got drugs from somebody, one of those things. I got it from somebody, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we need this." And there was a a punk rock bar called the King's Head Inn and on Hampton Boulevard, and I just kind of gave them the stuff, and they busted me, and they were like, "This is serious," but it was, the sneaky civilian world, so it didn't really. My command, I was in trouble and restricted because the fight that I had, but then they were like, when that happened, they were the civilians were talking about like felony charges and time, and I had just come out of being locked up and being caged like an animal, and I literally had to fight for my life every day. Yeah. That's what I was in the worst juvenile facilities in New York City. I was in Spofford, and then I did 3 months there, and then just under 21 months upstate, with everything from people that committed attempted murder on down. And I just didn't want that life anymore. And the opportunity presented itself. This band said, "Yo, come." I was hanging out with Henry Rollins and in DC and Ian Mackay. And they were like, awesome. "Oh, man." I was like, "I'm facing this time." And they're like, "Yo, man, just leave. Why, don't, they're going to lock you up somewhere for like probably 10 years, And I was like, yeah, that's what the court appointed attorney was saying. Like, this could be an extensive time in jail. And I didn't want to do that. So the opportunity presented itself and I left. And I went back to New York, to my hometown, and I got a job working for the Bad Brains. And they lived in a studio that was in the worst neighborhood in Alphabet City. This gang called the Hitmen had a big drug spot, the biggest drugs, heroin, cocaine spot. And like they didn't want punk rockers hanging out. And they came into the venue where the Bad Brains were playing that night and started trying to stab people. And the Beastie Boys were there. And nobody stood up to them except for me. And the biggest dude tried to stab me, and I knocked him out. And then I got in a chain fight with these other. We in DC, we used to wear these bicycle chains, like with a quick release, and that was like a weapon. It weighed like 15 pounds, and you're hitting somebody with this thing. But we were never bullies. But punk rock has been sewn into the fabric of America now. It's been commercialized and homogenized and watered down, but everybody has a mohawk now and tattoos but you have to understand something. This was 1980. Nobody looked
You mean punk rock isn't Blink 182?
Oh, hell no. I'm friends with Travis Barker. Travis Barker is a fan of my band. You will see him wearing my old band. You'll see him wearing that Cro-Mags shirt that he wears to do his marathons now and his runs. I'm the one that gave it to him. But no, that's cool. Not punk rock. You talk about Black Flag, Bad Brains and that type of stuff and then I was into Motorhead.
Motorhead.
I was good friends with Lemmy. And and I gotta tell you, even Rob Zombie, because last year, 2 years ago, I was out at Sturgis, and I'm friends with him. And Rob Zombie was playing, and I told him, hey, I got some veterans that I'm with, and he got all of us backstage passes, and
that's
you
cool.
never believe like how many people like a lot of society may not believe with the situations that the government puts you guys in, and I understand that. But we never lose sight of the sacrifices that people in the military make, not just for themselves, but being away from their family and risking their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, you were a medic. I know all about the corpsmen. You guys served out there, saved many a life in the battlefield. You were a helicopter pilot, putting yourself at risk, So, I mean, I know all the stories of the bravery and the valor that you guys exhibit. Like I said, I got a lot of friends who served in the Special Forces community as well, and I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes growing up, and I always try to atone for those.
Yeah.
by being there for people, especially veterans. I do walking tours in New York, first responders and veterans free. I've done fundraisers for disabled veterans, and I'm racing Ironman for Tunnel to Towers, which helps
Oh yeah.
disabled vets, and it's my 15th Ironman. So I mean,
Nice.
I just try to turn my life around. But in that time, like Adam said, it was a lot of soul searching and just confused. And the Bad Brains took me out on the road with them. I started my music career singing for Cro-Mags in '81, and then the roadies of the Bad Brains, we formed a band called Blood Clot because they were Rastafarians. So every time something went wrong, they were like, "Fix the blood clot arm, fix the blood clot guitar." So we were like, "Yo, let's call ourselves Blood Clot," because of the blood clot situations, and
Yeah.
then we went on tour with them and opened up for them on their first like Southern tour, and all the racism that they had to deal with because nobody knew they were black. Like
Yeah.
the manager didn't put a tour poster of what they look like. So we would show up at biker like KKK redneck bars, and they'll be like, "What the hell are y'all doing in here with that funny hair, man?" And it was
Oh my
dreadlocks,
God.
So it
So
was
is that like the origin of the Sharps then, kind of?
yeah, the Skinheads Against Racial Prejudice.
Yeah.
They came later. They came later because what
Because
happened?
they were around when I was a kid. Like that's the kind of people that I hung out with.
Yeah, well, what happened? That was a result as this whole like crazy, like white power skinhead movement that
Yeah.
started happening. And as a matter of fact, my old bass player in the Cro-Mags was one of them. He had a swastika tattoo. Like he got into that whole thing. And when I came out from being a monk and went back to the band, I was like, I mean, he was doing terrible stuff, like beating up gay people. Like, oh, I was like, yo, what are you doing, man? Like,
Yeah.
and then I steered him more towards the philosophical aspect of life because I was just a monk, and that's how we came up with the album Age of Quarrel. And for Cro-Mags, next year's the 40th anniversary of that.
Oh,
And
nice, man.
it's
That's
just
so
been
cool.
like it's just been a real growth period for me to learn from my mistakes. But it took me writing the memoir to really kind of exercise the demons of my childhood. I stayed no relationships, no girls, no nothing for 5 years, and I wrote this book as a way to exercise. It's Patty Jenkins that did Monster. Adam Yout from the Beastie Boys so I got all endorsements. And then this book, Joe Rogan gave me a quote for the back of the book.
Oh, cool.
He does a lot of work with veterans himself, and he never talks about what he does. He doesn't look for praise from it or
So
anything. And then 95, I finally was like, I got to take care of this, man. So I was UA for 15 years. I never didn't get arrested or nothing. I turned my life around, and then
yeah.
JAG lawyer was able to be like, hey, and they gave me an general discharge. They even offered me all my medical benefits, but I didn't take them. I'm like, nah, I'm all right, man. I'm not gonna put a weight on the system. I don't deserve it, even though you're offering it. I didn't take, being able to go to the VA hospitals. They offered me full medical or whatever, and I was like, nah, you know.
So you go through all this stuff. You've been like you've lived all these lives. How do you get to a point to where because you talk about these things that you've been through and that you've gone through, and I as a foster parent who's adopted 2 kids, your story breaks my heart. You hear those when you're going through and you're learning how to be a foster parent, and it breaks your heart. So how do you, I don't want to use the term forgive yourself, but like sort of move on from your mistakes the way that you have? What does that self-discipline and personal integrity, like what does that look like for you today?
Well, the first thing was to accept responsibility for the mistakes that I made.
Yeah.
You know, listen, I can't change the past. What's done is done. I was a screwed up kid. I tried to do the right thing. It didn't happen. I'm not going to sit there and punish myself. At the same time, I'm going to take responsibility. I fell into a 2-year very bad addiction in from 88 to 90 because the dude that was in my band who was doing all that stuff, ripped me off, and I just couldn't, I just couldn't even believe it. So I spun out into addiction, and then 1990, I got free from all that. But speaking, I had a lot of trust issues because we thought when we went into this foster home that these people cared about us, but they were one of these people that got the money for having a bunch of foster kids in the home. They made us eat dog food, Oreo spit sandwiches, climb into friggin' poor boxes to get clothes. We never got to go in the house. Every one of us had to bathe in the same tub of water. They beat the crap out of us, and much worse. And we found out where they were stashing the money because they were supposed to be spending all the money. And then we started stealing the money back from them. Like, we became these little hoodlums, and we kept the diary for 5 years, my older brother, Eugene, about everything that they did to us. But my mother was suicidal, and one time we started telling her what was happening on a home visit, and she tried to kill herself. We had to call my uncle and come over and like sedate her. And I was like, so we never said anything. We just kept taking what they were doing to us. And this guy was so crazy. When he beat me one time, I went to the nurse in school and showed her the bruises. And he got called in and then said, oh, his brothers did that to him. He thinks this is going to get his mother to take him back, and all this. And then he took me to a mental institution and smashed my face against the fence with all like these crazy people grabbing me saying, I'm going to put you in here if you ever open up your mouth again. I can do it. No one will find. I mean, the kind of, I also stand up for sexually abused children and physically abused children. It's part of my thing. If I find out somebody put their hands on a kid, it's on.
Well, John,
because nobody has the right to touch children. It's the most horrible, despicable thing that you can do, and it ruins people. My brother could never get over it. That's why he succumbed to his addiction. Many people, I've spoken at drug programs, prisons, everything, man. I make schools, the worst gang, high schools in New York City. And when these kids hear my story and other people hear my story, and that's the reason I've been open about what happened to me, all the abuse, is because I wanted to show people, listen, and my writing teacher, Robert McKee, I took his course because I was writing a script about everything I went through. And during the break, you would get to ask questions. So I waited till everybody was done, and he was standing there by himself in New York City outside of like Fashion Institute of Technology. They rented the auditorium for him. And I said, Mr. McKee, in terms of a protagonist, the main character who's been abused as a child, and he stopped me right there. And he said, McGowan, because that's my real last name. And he was Irish too, and he liked me. He's like, yeah, you got all these tattoos and you talk tough, but underneath you're really a marshmallow, So he stopped me when I said that, and he goes, child abuse is the number one cliche that writers use to try to draw emotion out of the audience because their characters are flat, right? He said it's not what happens to a character, it's what they do as a result of it. And that was like, I was having so much trouble writing this book because every time I got to the sexual abuse and the physical abuse, I couldn't go on. It was embarrassing, and I would collapse and I would have a meltdown for like 3 hours and then shelf the project. And that kept happening for years. I was trying to write that book. And once Robert McKee told me that, then I realized that's what it's all about. And how can I help somebody from what I went through? It's what we do as a result. That's why I reached to addicts, because the statistics that I found in this book that I just put out, 85% of all adult addicts were abused as children. So
Well,
that's
let me interject there for a second, because it sounds to me like, there were some real blockers, that you weren't able to confront and deal with, but it was actually the process of writing your book and being able to have, a writing mentor and a guide that really kind of helped you break through.
So taking ownership.
Yeah, it's such an incredible
I'm very
trajectory.
honest in that book. I say all the mistakes I made, the people I've robbed, the dishonor of my service in the military, and just everything. I'm open and honest about every single mistake that I made, and that is how you get past things, not trying to cover things up or make excuses.
Almost like a confession of sorts, but also a therapy and a release for you to be able to really confront these things that you've been dealing with, that you've, been exposed to from such a early age, from this generational trauma into the angst of the punk rock scene, into the military and not going the way that you wanted to, and then being able to go back in, find the music scene, find that therapy and that thing that, kind of anchored you in your youth, but then, still running into so many challenges, into this just incredible evolution of growth through confronting your own demons and looking in the mirror and having to say, I'm not going to run from it. I'm not going to deny it. Even more so, I'm going to publish it, and then I'm going to make it my life work to be better. Here's my question for you. If there's somebody going through it today, what's your advice to them? How do you help them navigate when they feel like there's no hope?
The first thing is to reach out for help. And the second thing is, if there's a fire and we're trying to extinguish a fire, we don't throw gasoline on it. You have to get clean and sober. That's only going to make things worse. And with my addiction, I became violent. I was like, and I don't say this bragging because I was never a bully, but I was a feared street fighter in some of the worst gang neighborhoods. And like I built the reputation because I felt when somebody tried to do something to me, the 4 agreements: don't take things personally.
Yeah.
Don't make assumptions. Always do your best. Be impeccable with your word. I try to live by that. I was the epitome of taking things personally. If you tried to do something to me, I was going to multiply it by 100 and reciprocate. So we can't let, and somebody told me if we destroy ourselves, then our abusers win again. That was a very powerful thing that somebody said to me. So we can't destroy ourselves. And, like I just had a client the other day. I've had people who were like with a gun in their mouth sitting in their garage and were like, I'm going to fucking text John right now I swear to God. And this guy got out of prison. Everything was going bad for him. He had a family. And he's like, let me just write John. And I saw the message. And the other day, one of my clients who's in recovery now was also suicidal. He does Ironmans yesterday. And I said, he got hurt. And he had to pull out of a race. And I know how much this, we're replacing one addiction with another, right? But this is an addiction, like Goggins always says, if you're not obsessed, you're going to quit. You have to be obsessed with what you're doing. And there's been a negative connotation attached to obsession, but it's a good thing. You have to be obsessed with what you want to achieve in this world because there's going to be so many temptations. So he just had meniscus surgery and he had to pull out of the race September 28th. I was like, something was telling me, God, the higher power, whatever, was telling me yesterday, reach out to him. And I text him and he answered back and I said, call me, man. I always check in on people. That's what I do. And he called me. He goes, "You're never gonna believe where I am, where I'm sitting right now." And I said, "Where?" He goes, "In the parking lot of the liquor store. And I've been trying to find 100 reasons not to go in there and get a bottle of liquor." And excuse my French, I text him right at that moment. Something, my spider senses was like, something's going on here. So never be quiet, never hold it inside, because you're just, all it's going to take is a match or a spark. And especially with veterans, man, like some of the stuff that you guys have seen in war and in combat, it's like you have to be able to get out there and have community.
Discipline is something that needs to be fed.
Well,
Discipline is something that needs to be given power and given ownership. And I think that that's something that you've done. In fact, you've got a website, johnjosephdiscipline.com,
Right.
and your book's there, right?
I coach in discipline, and I always say discipline creates the habits create the routines, and the routines become who we are.
Yeah.
Look how disciplined I was as an addict, man. All my habits and routines revolved around how am I going to get the next drugs or booze or whatever. And I remain disciplined in bad stuff. You can be disciplined in negative stuff that's going to harm us as well.
Yeah.
Like I said, some of the drug addicts I've known, I lost my first girlfriend at 15 to heroin. I was a heroin mule at 14 years old. I've seen people die, and I've seen some of the most brilliant minds be able to hustle. This one guy, Mikey DeBreese, who I worked for with Buckles Catano, sold fake drugs. And like, he was a genius. I'm like, if he would have took that same energy, he would have been running a 501, he would have been running a Fortune 500 company. Like, it's where we want it. Like, spiritually, it's all about where we want to put our energy into what we invest, where we invest is what we get out of something. So,
well,
anyway.
I think that this is one of those things that, you find music. It helped me through my stuff. It helped you. And I think that that's something that a lot of veterans can sort of lean on is there anything? So you've got johnjosephdiscipline.com, and you've got both your books there, and you do coaching there. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
This book too, The PMA Effect.
Oh yeah.
And I'll just show you, like, this is my boy AJ James. He's got his he was SEAL Team 5, so he's got his whole business going now. And I was, during the Iraq war and all that, I had veterans reaching out to me, man. I was sending care packages out of t-shirts, books, posters. Dude was like, "Hey man, I became vegetarian." I would send them like, organic protein bars and like, whatever I could do, man. But I would end this whole thing with saying, if you're going through something, the worst thing that you could possibly do is try to go it alone.
Yeah.
There's strength in numbers, man. That's what the military teaches, and that's what we look for, that in life, the camaraderie. We always want to be, and Prabhupada always said, one stick could be snapped easily, but we need to bundle ourselves together, and then nobody could break us. And help each other out and have compassion, man. That's a good way to live life.
You never know the other side of somebody's story. And brother, it means the world you being here. The Legion's gonna love this one.
You're in Destin, so you're having some issues there too. But
yeah, he's freezing up a little bit.
I'm honored to be able to come on with you guys, and once again, thank you for all of your service to the country and the sacrifices that you guys have made. It's just I never take anything for granted of what you guys have been through, and like I said, I got a lot of friends, multiple deployments, and it's an honor to be chatting with you guys, man.
Bless you, brother. Well, thanks again,
man. And I'm Irish Catholic. I grew up, so I read the Bible still at home. And so I look at life like, hey, man, everybody has everybody's a teacher, and we can learn from everybody. Even, and that's why it's never good to judge people. Like you said, we don't know their story. We don't know what they've been through. I never judge, So that's a good mindset to have. And as they say, mindset is everything.
And it's hard earned, but we appreciate you. Thank you so much for visiting us. And Alphas, please stick around for some scuttlebutt after the break.
Oh, scuttlebutt.
Family and community engagement. The American Legion meets the unique needs of local communities. We are veterans strengthening America. We are the American Legion.
Okay, Alphas, we hope you had a great break. Now it's time for Stacy's Scuttlebutt.
Yes, that's right, Alphas. I'm back, and I'm sorry I missed that interview, but I know it was that Joe and Adam did a fantastic job.
We did. It was a good one.
But in honor of today's guest, and because I missed being able to chat with him, I thought I would honor his athleticism in triathlons,
Triathlitude.
His triathlism. I went down to Reddit to track down some fun triathlon stories, and as usual, Reddit didn't disappoint. I did find a thread titled, "What's the best poster you've ever seen on race day?" So, at Triathalon shared, "Smile if you're not wearing any underwear."
That's messed up. How can you not smile when you read that sign?
Do you wear underwear in a marathon? Because it would have so much chafing.
I was thinking about chafing and blistering in the nether regions, and I just cringed a little bit.
That's the fun part.
I did. And you know how somebody. Do you know how you can tell if somebody ran a marathon or did a triathlon?
They'll tell you.
Exactly, Adam. So I did a marathon, and I was literally bleeding between my calves. I should have known, because when I wear corduroys, it's like a whipping sound, like, and I could start a fire. I should have never.
You didn't run in corduroys, did you?
No. But the friction is there, regardless of material. I will tell you. Okay.
Fire. That's all that friction.
If you're ever on a deserted island, you need a fire. You just put 2 sticks to your thighs and just go for a run.
No, corduroys is all you need, my friend. Some kindling, some corduroys, and my thighs. At Matate99 shared, "If you're still married, you did it wrong."
Okay, somebody.
I guess that's a training joke.
Well, no, I think because you spend so much money. Like, if you're still married, then you did it wrong. Then you're not spending enough money. At Red Jace 5 said, on a particularly difficult run course for a 70.3, a girl had a sign that simply said, "You're amazing." It was a shitty run, so I wasn't feeling too amazing, but reading still gave me the encouragement and the boost of confidence despite my suffering. Thanks, random stranger. At Affectionate Turn 70 shared, "If this was easy, it would be called your mom." That's rough. At Cataman52 said, "It's okay to crap your pants."
Just not other people's pants.
At Swim Bike Run 91 said, "Guy was dressed up as a devil on the first big hill of the chatty 70.3 run course, had a sign that said, 'You're almost to the top.' And then when I got close and smiled, he flipped it around and it said, 'I'd never lie to you.'" I love that. He was dressed as the devil, as a reminder, guys. At Anatomize That, that's a great handle, followed up saying, "I saw one like this at the Lincoln Presidential Half Springfield in 2017. It was at mile 3, I think, and it said, 'You're almost there!' Hashtag alternative facts." I almost died laughing.
Man.
I saw her again at mile 12, and she had flipped the sign, and it said, "You're really almost there now." I gave her a shout out to both times because that was hilarious. At W. Sawyer shared, not the funniest one, but one of the more memorable, was a woman in her 20s at IMCDA holding a piece of cardboard with "Squeeze for Power Boost" written in a Sharpie with 2 arrows pointing to her boobs. I passed her twice on the 3-loop run course, but my wife never saw her, so she must have been somewhat selective about when she threw that offer out. At Pet Avocado's favorite sign said, "Smile if you peed in your water," or "Smile if you peed in the water," which I did on my tri sprint. Sorry for anybody behind me. That's not true.
Don't swim with your mouth open. That'll learn them.
At Two Cats and a Doggo weighed in with, "The person behind you wants to talk about your extended car warranty." Run! Don't forget, Alphas, the American Legion is on Reddit. I'm on Reddit all the time, and we're ready for you to join us there. You can find us at r/American Legion on the Reddit.
I just want to add that when I did the Marine Corps Marathon in 2006,
here we go. We did the marathon.
I was near the end, and there was one big hill, and I was on a hand crank. Well, the problem with hand crank is once you get going, you're okay, but they're heavy. And so once you slow down, especially if you're on a hill, you're really in a bad spot. I was the very end of the race. We were on the last 3/4 of a mile. And for some reason, they decided it was going to be like that. And somebody cut me off that was wearing headphones, and I was like calling on your left, and I ended up coming to almost a complete stop, and I was struggling to get it going. I felt like I was going to bend the handlebars trying to get the hand crank going again. And some guy, I don't know where he's at, but if you hear me right now, I just want to let you know I've never forgotten what you did for me. He came and run up behind me and didn't push me, because that would have taken away, like in my mind, that would have felt bad. He gave me the most encouraging slap on my back. It was so hard, it got me rolling again. He knocked the crap out of me. And it's the absolute nicest thing that anybody could have done in that moment. I just needed to get the wheel rolling. I'll never forget that guy. He was gone, obviously, and just, if that guy hears, oh my gosh, if I'm the guy you hit on the back at the last 3/4 mile in 2006 at the Marine Corps Marathon, Semper Fi, brother. I appreciate you.
Thanks for the spank.
Thanks for the spank. I'm going to get a t-shirt. What? Oh, heavens to Betsy. All right. So
Joe, what do you got?
I got a little something for you too. So according to a Task and Purpose article, which I've been on a kick for recently with Task and Purpose, the Army is swearing in top tech executives from Meta, OpenAI, and Palantir as senior officials to be part-time advisors. Count them, baby. Senior executives of tech giants like Meta and Palantir are being sworn into the Army Reserve as direct commissioned officers at the unusually high rank of lieutenant colonel, as part of a new program to recruit private sector experts to speed up tech adoption. Can you imagine though, like these guys like rolling onto base and they're like fumbling and they're getting saluted and they have no I hope they get at least a basic training of some sort. So let's dig in here.
They probably join the medical corps officers, because I think they're military adjacent, right? Like they don't do the
medical or medical.
You got it. That was intended.
Oh, so the Army calls a program to recruit Silicon Valley executives Detachment 201, the Army's Executive Innovation Corps. Side note, detachment's what I do to deal with life. No, I'm just joking. One of the executives, Andrew Bosworth of Meta, formerly Facebook, posted on X that the 201 moniker was a nod to the HTTP coding command, in which a 201 response indicates the creation of a new programming resource. The reserve.
How long do you think Tank worked? How long do you think it took a think tank to workshop that name?
Hey, what do you think about HTTPS coding? Yeah, 201. Let's call it 201. Nobody's going to understand it because nobody freaking gets it. But yeah, that makes sense.
That's why I busted out laughing right there, because I was thinking like inside jokes for nerds get. And I mean, I say nerds in a positive way. I like geeks and nerds. It's kind of always been my people.
Sounds kind of in a demeaning way, though, the way that you say it.
Well, I don't mean it to be a demeaning way, so I'll correct it.
I'm just kidding.
I guess there's not really a good way to, but it gets so, sometimes when you make jokes, they go so meta, like so deep. Like we say fix it in post, but you could imagine the joke turning into something like post it or not my problem or whatever. So that kind of joking is like stage 3 joke that we're just so far out of the loop. We're never going to understand it.
All right, this is a long one, Joe. This is a long one.
This is a long one. I'm going to crank. The reserve's new lieutenant colonels are Shyam Sankar, Chief Technology Officer for Palantir, Bosworth, Chief Technology Officer at Meta, Kevin Wheel, Chief Product Officer at OpenAI, and Bob McGrew, an advisor at Thinking Machines Lab and former Chief Research Officer for OpenAI. Each of the 4, which were set to be sworn in Friday, arrive with decades of experience.
No, I'm sorry. This is a long one, but these titles cannot be overlooked. Chief Technology Officer of Palantir, Meta, and Chief Product Officer of OpenAI. These are no small roles. These are like C-suite level roles that they're bringing in.
Do you mean office with a window type level?
It's not quite command,
right.
but it's like
Corner
just under
desk,
that, right?
Stacy. No,
Now they're going to be living in cubicles.
Chief Technology Officer is like the CEO for all things technology within the function. It's like absolutely massive. This is crazy.
So, like the whole point of this Detachment 201 program is to bring in these part-time advisors from private sectors, and they're giving them lieutenant colonel status, which is cool. But they're trying to scale commercial technology like drones and robots into formations. The idea of incorporating private sector expertise is right out of Ukraine, as soldiers there who are engineers or computer scientists in their day jobs are MacGyvering these really interesting and effective like makeshift drones and 3D printing parts to use on front lines against Russia. It really, regardless of what side you're on, if you pay attention to how they're fighting over there, it's really interesting. Army officials for the new officers will get at least a taste of traditional Army training before filling their roles, tech-focused policy advisors. Colonel Dave Butler, the spokesperson for the Army Chief of Staff, General Randy George, that's a good name, told Task and Purpose that the 4 executives will get up to 2 weeks of online and face-to-face training at Fort Benning, Georgia. When are they coming out? Because they come out right now. It is no joke out here, my friends. It is Georgia's Georgiaing.
Once they complete that, they're also going to go through airborne qualification.
Oh, okay. Ring the bell. Marksmanship and basic soldier. Why marksmanship? I just feel like
because every soldier needs to be able to shoot.
That's true. You know what? That is true. And besides, I don't think there's a downside to people knowing how to safely use guns. So
I think the duck hunt and the big buck hunt games definitely will qualify for their level of what they'll be shooting. But
well, why can't they just do all this work in the mine gym?
Yes.
Bring out the mine gym pod.
That guys in the mine gym.
I want the mine gym. I refuse to make jokes about it. I want one. But they're not going to go through the full 6-week direct commissioning course at Fort Benning, which I think is a waste. I think they would enjoy it. I feel like they're not going to feel like I honestly feel like if I got pulled in to do something in the military, I would want to go through the proper channels to do so. But you know what? I'm also not making $2.4 million a year. And I guess if I was, I'd have better things to do than go through a 6-week course.
The military is the one benefiting from this, this commissioning. So they're going to want to tailor it to keep it enticing for them to want to give up that time. And 2 weeks of an online course. Yeah, okay.
Well, and also it's a hybrid part-time position that's offered to a range of candidates in highly trained professional fields. So this isn't completely out of left field, but doctors, lawyers, veterinarians, which we still need to get, Holly, write this down, a veteran veterinarian. I just want to say vet. I just want to say it officially. That's all I want. That's a bucket list thing. All right. I'll do some research on my end. And others with specific industry skills, logistics, such as logistics. However, most Army Direct Commission officers begin in more junior ranks as captains or majors, where they can immediately take active jobs in their fields rather than be expected to serve in leadership roles that they have not been prepared for. And that's kind of my concern, but I guess they're going to work with teams directly in their expertise. And so the tech executives will arrive as lieutenant colonels. So lieutenant colonels typically command battalion size like 300 to like 1,000 soldiers, but these guys are going to have very different roles. They're going to have the 4 tech executives are unlikely to command traditional formations. It wouldn't make sense for them to do so. Senior business executives, all of them, so all 4 are going to spend time basically doing what they're focused on, what their expertise is.
Yeah, but again, you have to understand, like as chief technology officers for some of these companies, they are responsible for all the technology decisions of like a Facebook. So that's how many thousands of employees that impacts billions of users. So
yeah,
it's interesting from a leadership perspective, but I just want to put that in there that as far as like technological impact, societal impact, these guys are top tier and are making those type of decisions that impact products when products in the sense of technological offerings that these services bring online, and they are doing those type of things for decades. So this is really, really crazy.
Well, like Stacy said, this is for us, not for them. AI is a huge thing, and we need to be in front of it. It's as simple as that. It's I forget what movie it was, but it was you can be first, or you can cheat. You can be first, you can be better, you can cheat, and it's always easiest to be first. So getting ahead of this kind of thing is the right move to do. And these guys are millionaires, and and we've done stuff with Palantir and OpenAI. They've been contractors for DoD before. Meta has announced a partnership with Anduril for troop augment and virtual reality devices. I know that they do things like training and stuff like that as well. So, honestly, these 4, they're doing us a favor. So, I think that the swearing in is sort of a bigger mission to inspire more tech pros to serve without leaving their careers, because these people aren't going to stop making money to do that. They're going to show up, and it's showing the next generation how to make a difference in uniform. And I think that getting some of these tech guys involved in what we do is only going to be a benefit for America as a whole. I mean, and they seem really, jazzed up to do it too. They're posting on X about how excited they are to be a part of it. And what do you guys think? I think it's a smart move.
I think it'll entice subject matter experts that are needed to bolster the improvements of military technology, and moving forward is always the way to go. And if you need to adapt the way of training and integration of these people without eroding the military cohesiveness and strength, then by all means.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of shared a little bit. I mean, taking the chief technology officers of these companies and some of the stuff that we skipped over. I mean, these are like employee number, like whatever, 2006 at Facebook. Some of these people have cashed out, hundreds of millions of dollars, and basically helping to curate and bring online the digital world in the way that we know it. So I think it's very bold. I think it's a bold move. I think it's very innovative. Don't necessarily know what their plans are in the way that they're, thinking about, being able to transition our digital capabilities into the future. But if they're willing to actually listen and implement recommendations and also create some pathways to remove some of the organizational bureaucracy that exists within the military, and the acquisition process is absolutely a nightmare. But if they can overcome that, and these are the type of minds that, they've just been building, they've just been doing, they've just been delivering. So if you can actually get to a good hybrid partnership from that, I think that there's, like Stacy was saying, there's really incredible things, that could come from it.
There's a lot more information in the link that we'll have in the notes as well. And we've also got some pretty good scuttlebutt coming from Adam, too.
That's right. According to Stars and Stripes, American airmen in northeastern Japan are developing an artificial intelligence program aimed at streamlining the Air Force's flight scheduling process, according to the 35th Fighter Wing. The program, dubbed Moneyball, is to modernize scheduling operations by incorporating predictive data-driven capabilities. You know what? When I was a platoon leader, I was in charge of the flight schedule, and we didn't have predictive Moneyball analytics AI to help us do it. It was the old type it in 20 different times. It's going to change.
And hope nobody dies.
You know what? And if it changes during the week, then the battalion commander needs to know about it.
Who needs crew rest?
You're telling me you want me to go change this flight, and the battalion commander's going to sign off, and you're going to make me do that? You know? So, anyway.
Take it up with Moneyball now.
That's what life was like back in the early aughts. So, anyway.
My God, you're such a millennial.
Predictive, data-driven capabilities. The wing located in Misawa Air Base, we're digitizing the insights typically written in aircrew's pilot log, enabling rapid identification of recurring
Pilot log, start
issues tied to specific aircraft. Tech Sergeant Andrew Schaefer, 35th Fighter Wing Innovations, non-commissioned officer in charge, said in the release. Moneyball.
Make sure you break down what date he came in service and the day he got promoted to tech, because we need to know these things. I feel like that was a really super long title. It could just say NCO in charge. Anyway, Adam, carry on.
And now it's longer.
And now you know the rest of the story. Moneyball is scheduled to be tested during the upcoming Resolute Force Pacific exercise, according to the release. Developers also plan to expand the program's capabilities to include support for additional aircraft such as the F-15 Eagle, F-22 Raptor, and yes, the B-1B Lancer. The release did not specify which aircraft the Moneyball program currently supports. Captain Leroy Jenkins Stark, a spokesman for the wing, declined an interview request on behalf of Moneyball's development team in a June 3rd email, citing a combination of operational security and internal priorities.
I think his name is Captain Leroy Tony Stark in this case.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there it is. Tony Stark. Good one. Operational security, always a good out. The Air Force has tested similar AI initiatives in the Pacific in recent years. In 2023, Yokota Air Base's Innovation Cell, YokoWorks, worked with the 374th Contracting Squadron to secure a contract with California-based company Lilt to train an AI tool to translate Defense Department jargon into Japanese. These projects are part of a broader Pentagon effort to incorporate AI and autonomous technology into U.S. military operations. For all of you who are big Terminator fans, what could go wrong here?
Skynet.
Fusing the general AI capability into military operations. I believe a human-machine teaming is a door we need to push through very rapidly. Air Force Chief of Staff.
With no oversight.
with no oversight and
can we get undersight?
Over the world.
You know what?
Can we get hindsight on this?
I want unlimited funding, and I don't want any management or
no questions.
The black box of funding that I need for this. We'll just take from the Roswell Fund. We all know it's there. No. During the AI Expo, the event held June 2nd through 4th at the Walter E. Washington Convention Center in Washington, D.C., allowed attendees to convene and build relationships around AI technology and U.S. and allied competitiveness, according to its website. So AI is being explored for use in data fusion, predictive maintenance, and decision-making support roles. Alvin said at the expo, according to a DoD news release issued after the event, we have to keep our imaginations wide open to understand this is a game-changing technology when it comes to air dominance, he said. It's a very general thing to say.
God, sounds like such an Air Force thing to say.
But we can only do that if we don't sort of get trapped by the vestiges of the past. Okay.
That's fair enough. I mean, it's easy to stay status quo.
And how did Air Force bring Skynet online? That's the real question. Now you know.
No oversight and an unlimited budget. So.
Well, let us know what you think about black budgets and AI secret think tanks and the infusion of the military-industrial complex. It seems like it's inevitable.
Oh, it is. Yeah, AI is here.
All right.
Not going anywhere.
I'm just going to say, anybody not wearing 10,000 sunblocks is going to have a real bad day. Get it?
I think I'll be dust before I know what hits me. All right, alphas, make sure you grab your sunscreen and your tinfoil hats. Thanks for listening. You can subscribe to our podcast, our newsletter, and send us mail and guest recommendations at legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima. We'll see you next week.
Real soon. Next week.
We'll see you next week.